Today we are ranking all of the new NFL head coach hirings. There's going to be 8 new head coaches in the NFL, so whether you're here watching this video before the draft starts, during free agency, right before the new season kicks off, welcome anyone and everyone watching this video. Let's go ahead and get started. Starting off at the bottom of the list, number 8 is Brian Callahan, the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I want to make it clear there's not a head coach hiring that I absolutely hate in this entire cycle. Callahan just happens to be the lowest one on the totem pole here. Honestly, the reason that I rank him at number 8 has nothing to do with him being a terrible fit or anything like that. This mainly stems from 2 things. First, I just don't know how much he will impact this team because his previous gig was with the Bengals, and a lot of that offensive success had a ton of different factors going into it, from an offensive head coach that he worked under, to Joe Burrow being an excellent quarterback, to an excellent skill player room. It's just difficult to say that he was a main factor in that success, and so I don't know if that will transfer to Tennessee. The other reason is he got rid of Mike Vrabel, who's a coach that I think is awesome, and I really don't understand why they would move on so quickly from Vrabel. Again, this is not exactly 100% a judgment on Callahan's ability to coach or lead men. This is also encapsulating the context in which he's going to be coaching, management, all that kind of stuff. I just think this is my least favorite of this cycle, unfortunately. Following that up at number 7, we have Dave Canals, who will be the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. It was kind of a toss-up between putting Canals at the bottom or putting Callahan at the bottom of the list. I just think that Canals has proven that he can do more with less. Canals worked with the Seattle Seahawks and helped Geno Smith rise from the ashes. He helped Baker Mayfield rise from the ashes in Tampa this year. So at least he has a proven track record of salvaging less than stellar talent. Ownership situation is atrocious. You have to figure out if Bryce Young is even a worthy quarterback or not. This is a really, really tough gig. I feel bad for Canals because I think he's a quality coach. I just think that this is not going to end well, and that's why he falls into the bottom part of this list. At number 6, we have Gerard Mayo, who will be the new head coach of the New England Patriots. I feel pretty bad for Mayo. I don't really have a great read on how good of a coach he is or is not, because the Belichick regime in which he rose up from under tends to be pretty secretive, pretty guarded. I think his relative inexperience could lead to some drawbacks here. At the same time, though, that youth and freshness might be a breath of fresh air because the Patriots have had the same head coach for 20 years. So moving on from Belichick is a huge decision. This is a job where the expectations are interesting because at once I feel like there are massive expectations because of how much success Belichick had, but at the same time, because of how bad the past few years have been, I think that might balance it out to a more even sort of place. The Patriots roster needs a ton of work. I think that this is a tough gig for any coach to step into, let alone a first-time head coach. I'm rooting for him, but Gerard Mayo is number 6 on my list. At number 5, we have Dan Quinn, the new head coach of the Washington Commanders, the most recent person that I have talked about on this channel. Dan Quinn has a track record of relative success within the NFL. Really, the reason he's at number 5 on this list is that collapse against Green Bay in the playoffs in Dallas this past year. I saw a lot of red flags in that unit that showed up in that playoff game at home that got embarrassed by the Green Bay Packers, and I don't think he received enough criticism for that. I think the brunt of that was focused on Dak, McCarthy, Jerry Jones, etc. His defense did not look good in that game. I worry about a coordinator who does not show up in the most important situation, heading a team, particularly when it's the Commanders, who haven't had a ton of time in the spotlight for good reasons in the past few years. That being said, the reason he's number 5 on the list, he has experience. He has had success. I think the Commanders are much better off being under Dan Quinn than they were Ron Rivera, who I think was a disaster. Hopefully they can turn the ship around and make the NFC East a little more competitive than just the Eagles and the Cowboys fighting for the top spot. Dan Quinn falls to number 5 on my list. At number 4, we have Antonio Pierce, the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. We all know that he was the interim head coach for the Raiders this past season. This team has undergone, to be frank, hell when it comes to the head coaching position, going from the disaster that was the end of the John Gruden era into the Rich Bisaccia interimship, where people thought he should have gotten the head coaching job, and then they picked off the Belichick tree and went with Josh McDaniels, and we all know where that went. This team just needs a stable leader that is able to connect with his players, and I think Antonio Pierce has shown that he fits that bill perfectly. Stars on the team like Max Crosby were heavily campaigning for him to stay. And with Crosby leveraging a trade request if they picked anybody besides Pierce, the Raiders kind of had their hands tied here. They have been in a bad situation for multiple years at this point. They have players that are unhappy. They had a culture that had eroded. And I think Antonio Pierce largely salvaged what could have been the worst season of any NFL team. And for that, I think he totally has earned this head coaching job. And look, he's not super experienced, so that is not great. And we will see how that pans out in the long term. Maybe his success as an interim coach was simply vibes based, and when you have to instill an entire operation that gets you through multiple seasons, multiple off seasons, he might prove to be a little less than what he showed in that short span this year. This team desperately just needs continuity and it needs leadership, and I think Pierce fits that bill perfectly. He was already in the building and proved it last year. Why go reaching outside when it bit you in the ass last time? Antonio Pierce, number 4 on my list. Now we're into the big ones. Number 3 on my list, the bronze medal winner for NFL head coaching hirings, goes to Raheem Morris, the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I absolutely love Morris's resume. He has been a part of multiple successful teams. He has a ton of experience on both sides of the ball from a coaching perspective. He's worked with great players. He has familiarity with the franchise. He's worked with the Falcons before. He has familiarity with the division, as he was also a coach for the Buccaneers at one point. I think this is an excellent hire. He seems like he is the perfect kind of fit for what the Falcons need. I think that he has a proven track record as a great defensive coordinator, and there are offensive pieces that he will get to work with, whether that's Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, that Arthur Smith might not have been able to get the best out of, but we can see a fresh perspective. And since Morris, like I said, has experience coaching the offensive side of the ball, he can also hopefully provide some valuable insight on that matter. I'm really excited for where the Falcons could end up. I am very high on this hire. Like I said, Raheem Morris, number 3 on my list. The silver medal for NFL head coaching hirings, number 2 on my list, goes to Mike McDonald, the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Like I said in my individual video on this, I am a massive Seattle Seahawks fan, so just know that going into this segment. That being said, I absolutely love this hire. I'm over the moon with it. I love the moves that he has made so far. I think that his defensive mind melds well with the previous culture of Pete Carroll, but it seems like it's going to be different in a lot of key ways. And honestly, I think this team just needed a fresh perspective. Obviously, Pete Carroll's a legend. It's sad to see him go. Things had gotten stagnant, and for the first time, there was real, fresh optimism in the Seahawks fandom since I can't even tell you when. I think that there's a ton of young talent on the defensive side of the ball that McDonald can develop just based on how the players are reacting to this hire, how much I like McDonald as a coordinator in Baltimore. I think this is a slam dunk hire for Seattle. This is a tough division, obviously. You got the Rams, you got the Niners, and the Cardinals seem to be on the come up. The West is going to be really, really interesting for the next few years to come. They're clearly invested in McDonald. They gave him a long contract. That is the number 2 hire on this list, Mike McDonald. And of course, you know that only leaves one, the gold medal winner, number 1 on my list of favorite head coach hirings in this cycle, Jim Harbaugh, the new head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. It's kind of hard to talk about this hiring because I feel like everyone said everything about this. This was maybe the most telegraphed of all these hires. We knew that the Chargers wanted Harbaugh bad. They needed to pivot in a big way after the Brandon Staley disaster. They wanted to go after a guy with a proven track record, star power, and they got it in Jim Harbaugh. With this hiring, you showed Justin Herbert that you care, that you are invested in his future. You are willing to shell out big money to get the proper system around him that can help him succeed instead of forcing him to be Superman and do everything. You also got a head coach that commands a little more star power. And with a quarterback like Herbert that tends to be a little more reserved, I think that takes a lot of pressure off his back. And at the end of the day, this move makes you relevant in a division that has Patrick Mahomes in it, dominating over and over and over again, with the mess that's going on in Denver, with Vegas having their own new head coach and a lot of questions to deal with. This move puts you at the front of the conversation. The Chargers were kind of a laughingstock in the back half of last year because of just how much squandered potential was there. And since the Jim Harbaugh hiring, the Chargers have catapulted back up to contender status in debate shows, in podcasts, and just talking with your buddies at the bar about what team's going to be good next year. And that's something that the LA Chargers desperately needed. That's why my favorite hire of this hiring cycle goes to Jim Harbaugh, the new head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. This has been a super fun project for me to make. I had a blast. If you want to know more insight that I had on any of these hirings, I have them all linked in the description below. There's also a playlist on my channel where I break down each of these hirings individually. That being said, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you like this video, go ahead, throw it a like. It makes a big difference. And if you've made it all the way here, I would really appreciate it. If you want to see more content, you can go to my channel. And if you like my content, you can subscribe. That's the best way to support me. Once again, I can't thank you enough for watching this video. Support means the world to me. And hopefully I will see you next time. Take care.